We've had a lot of time to speculate over Deltarune's direction, over 1300 days from Chapter 2 and over 2400 days since Chapter 1. That's a whole lot of time to make theories, so today we're going to be ranking 20 of them from S to F, S being very plausible with lots of evidence and F being complete bunk. Be sure to like and subscribe if you enjoy the content and comment your own theories for Deltarune. I might even review them in a future video. And spoilers for Deltarune and Undertale as always. Alright, first one here is called Chess Theory. This one predicts that the major villains of each chapter will be based around a chess piece. Chapter 1 had the king, Chapter 2 had the queen, and we'll eventually see the rook, bishop, and the knight. The knight, who has already been mentioned several times in the game so far, and the pawn, who either refers to Chris as they are literally a pawn to the player, or someone else entirely who's being manipulated, maybe the one who went missing. Since there is 7 chapters and only 6 pieces, I assume the 7th is meant to be the player of the game itself, or it's whoever's controlling the world. Right off the bat, I'm gonna give this an A. It has a few question marks it needs to fill in, but given that there's already a king, a queen, and a knight in the game already, it wouldn't be too out of the question for there to be a rook, bishop, and a pawn, given how Chris is basically a pawn already. And in the Christianity power scale, a bishop is a beefed up priest, which we already have in the town mumbling to himself at a grave. Does that one count? Probably not. That's a definite stretch, but we probably can't predict the remaining ones. It's plausible, but we just don't have enough info. Number 2, the vessel will return. In Chapter 1, you make a blank vessel, answer some questions about it, and discard it at the end. Half of me thinks that this is further reinforcing the notion that choices don't matter, since it's outright told you by the creator, Susie, and the game's marketing itself. However, the vessel returning seems possible at the very least. Even though the game says it discards the vessel, its values are still saved to memory. Interestingly, in the game's source code, the creator is called the Goner Maker, and at the end of the creator, it destroys the instance instead of saving it. But to test it on my actual save files, I booted up 2 new saves and did all the default options on the creator on the first save and did completely different ones on the second save. Looking at my save files, this alters lines 1217 through 1226 of the save file, and the numbers line up with the choice amounts on the creator. For the first thing here on your head, there's 8 options, and assuming the first option is 0, the last one here would be considered 7, which lines up with my choice in save number 2. If this torso is equal to 0, this last one here would be 5. Which is also reflected in the save file, and so on. Almost everything in save 1 is 0 because it all chooses the default first option, so your choices in the creator are actually secretly saved. Honestly, a bold move, but I'm gonna give this an S. Why else would Toby deliberately write code to make it look like he deleted the vessel only to have those values saved anyway? Why go through the effort of faking out not even just the player, but the source code analyzers too? I trust the creator discarding the vessel as much as I trust that there's only one ending. I don't think it's going to be a big return. I don't think the vessel is going to be a major character that like turned evil and starts attacking you. I think there's probably going to be some Easter egg with it, or like he's like experimenting on it or something, but I don't see the vessel being a big story thread. Number 3, entry 17 is opening a dark fountain. Entry 17 is a secret journal entry in Undertale, and it's written in Wingding's font that looks like hands. Here's the translation of it on screen. It's essentially our only solid instance of Gaster talking, and whoever is talking in the Deltarune character creator sounds very, very similar to him. The audio played here is the exact same audio that plays during calls inside the Dark World. It says darkness 4 times, photon readings are negative, so there's no light, and the experiment is very, very interesting. I think it's a neat theory with a little bit of credibility, but honestly, I just gotta give it a C, simply because I feel that Gaster probably fell into the super darkness where Ralsei came from, rather than simply just creating a dark fountain. I think it goes deeper than him just opening up a dark world. Next up, we got, oh my fucking god, Ralsei is actually Jewish. Literally, the only thing supporting this is that when you rearrange Ralsei's letters, it makes Israel. And that in Chapter 2, Ralsei's sprite looks like it has a little dreidel on its chest. Honestly, I'd probably give this like a D if there was a church and the whole town didn't go to it, so This is getting a big ol' F for false. Speaking of Ralsei, number 5, Ralsei is Asriel. It's pretty obvious to see why people would jump to this conclusion. Both of their names have the same letters. They look very similar. There's this kind of like dramatic moment where Ralsei takes his hat off and he looks like Asriel, and Asriel went off to college and isn't seen at all, so it's easy to just think that this is him in the Dark World. Ralsei doesn't turn into stone in other Dark Worlds, so he's either a Lightner pretending, or he gets special properties because he's the Prince of the Dark. People theorize Asriel might not have gone to college at all and instead hid inside the Dark World to avoid it. I mean, hell, Susie, Noelle, and Birdley damn near end the world so they can do it themselves. But without future chapters to confirm it, I'm gonna say that this one is a little bit flimsy. Like, going outside of their names being an anagram and them kind of looking similar, it doesn't have much really going for it. One, I think there's way too much implied romance with the boat scene for Chris to be doing this with what is effectively his brother. 2, Ralsei vanishes when he dies, unlike the other 2 Lightners who kneel. If Ralsei was the Lightner Asriel, he wouldn't vanish into nothing when downed in battle. Given that Asriel's hinted to be outgoing and good around town while Queen and Noelle basically forget him and call him nothing, I feel like they're definitely different characters. This one is getting a big old D. I think it's way more likely that Ralsei is an object that belonged to Asriel that got turned into Ralsei when thrown into the Dark World. Number 6, Ralsei is the Devil Headband. In Chapter 1, Toriel mentions Chris wore a pair of devil horns and pretended to be a monster growing up. She also says that she can't find them anymore. So the theory is that Ralsei was created from the headband left inside the school's closet. Maybe Chris threw the headband into the closet after getting frustrated, or since Toriel works as a teacher, maybe she accidentally left it in the closet at some point. Ralsei does have pinkish red horns in his sprite. Maybe more pink because the headband was old and beat up from excessive use and its color faded. You might also carry the horns with you, explaining how Ralsei got the cyber world. The horns don't show up in your inventory, but neither does your big ass sword. And since Ralsei knows the layout of the outside world, as evidenced by him instructing you to go to the room next to the closet, it makes sense that he'd know since Chris wore the headband everywhere. Maybe Ralsei is a manifestation of what Chris wanted to be growing up. A normal goat monster like the rest of their family, and Chris threw their headband into the closet afterwards for some reason. Or maybe Toriel just left them in there, who knows. Basically, Ralsei is Chris's persona. I'm giving this an S for super plausible. We honestly don't know enough about Ralsei himself to really say otherwise. I doubt Toby would set up Toriel both telling us about the headband and establish it's missing. It could be a throwaway line, which is why it's rated plausible, but it definitely feels like a Chekhov's gun. It both establishes Chris's longing to be a monster, and the headband being missing lets you speculate on if it ended up in the Dark World. I mean, fuck, it seems like everything that goes missing in this town ends up in the Dark World, so why not this? Alright, number 7, Angel's Heaven Theory. This one is really nutty. The theory is that the universe of Deltarune has no choice, going off of it being hammered into your skull multiple times through the game. Your choices in the game don't matter either, since you get the same outcome no matter what you do. No matter who you talk to, who you save, who you kill, who you spare, no matter what, it still has the exact same ending. Chris is forced to do things against their will, you're railroaded into working with Ralsei and closing the fountain, Susie snatches Ralsei away from us in Chapter 2 no matter who we choose to hang out with. So the theory is that the game will end with us banishing the Angel's Heaven, which is the heaven created with no choice, and us banishing it to restore free will to the universe. Ralsei's legend tells us of 3 heroes, us, banishing the Angel's Heaven. Spamton also mentions heaven multiple times in conjunction with freedom, along with wanting your heart-shaped object to call his own shots. Maybe the angel they're referring to is some oppressive force controlling everyone, and your role is to give everyone's freedom back. After all, Chapter 1's demo basically has you sign away your rights to let the game take the reins. You are accepting your role just as all the other characters in the game have their roles too. Your path will eventually lead to you trying to alter it. Jevil wanted to change his fate so bad that he created his own inside his cell. Spamton wanted to change it so bad that he turned into a big-ass robot, but he still couldn't detach himself from the strings controlling him. Chris wanted to change it so bad that they sold their soul to the player, or might have to sell it in order to avoid their fate. I'm gonna give this an A. It just kind of lines up with the philosophy it presents at the beginning, that you'd have a game with no choice and a sister game all about choice. Maybe the banishment of the angel restores force free will to the alternate universes of Undertale, or leads to the creation of it. I don't know. All I know is this one wouldn't surprise me, especially when you factor in the last theory I got in this video. Stick around to see that. That one's a real nutty one. Number 8, Woody theory. This one's fucking stupid, stemming from Toby Fox making an edit of You Got a Friend in Me from Toy Story, where he says, "Friend inside me." Toby also spammed the fuck out of this on his Tumblr when it was relevant. Given how Lancer and Rules Card come inside of you in Chapter 2, I feel like Woody could too. I mean, you seem pretty spacious, so I think you can handle it. Jokes aside, this theory actually has fucking ties to teasers. One of them talks about a cowboy segment in Chapter 3, which was in serious danger of being cancelled. Maybe the secret boss of Chapter 3 is a parody of Woody that can only say a set few things by pulling his string, following the secret bosses want freedom motif. This theory is getting an S for shitpost. I blame Toby for introducing it and the fans for fleshing it out. If this ends up being the only real one here, I'm going to be so angry. Number 9, Chris is a vessel. I mean, look at the options for the vessel. They all look incredibly similar to Chris. Like, I know they're the only human in this universe, but I think with the vessel looking damn near identical to them, I think it's easy to assume that they are at least a vessel. They don't have to be the specific vessel you made at the start of the game. They can just be a vessel that was made at some point. Number 10, homophobic Toriel. Okay, the only evidence I saw for this was that Toriel stopped Alphys and Undyne kissing in Undertale. Honestly, I feel like if she was homophobic, she wouldn't correctly gender Chris. Like, why would you be selective with that? This is getting a big old F for false. Number 11, Sans is a Darkner. Lots of weird coincidences with this, such as Sans' door being the same as the Dark World ones. He is the only one who dodges an Undertale despite it being a common occurrence in Darkners as long as you warn them. He's the only one that bleeds, or looks like he bleeds, and doesn't turn into dust. Well, at least on screen. Lancer implies you bleed even though Undertale monsters just turn to dust, and Sans is the only one that outright teleport in front of you that isn't a supernatural encounter. This one gets even more confusing because Sans bleeds and dies off screen while his brother Papyrus turns to dust. Are they related? Are they different? I don't know. Why would Sans be a Darkener and Papyrus be a normal monster? I gotta go for C for circumcision. Oh my god. I gotta go with C for circumstantial. It has some evidence here to back it up, but really it's just a crapshoot whether Sans is actually from a dark world or not. Why doesn't he turn to stone, and how is there nothing related to the dark world in Undertale? And assuming the roaring happens in Deltarune, how would he have survived? How is he in the light world if he's a darkener? Like, it doesn't make sense. Number 12, Sans is the same person in both games. This I feel has a little bit more merit. Sans has identical personalities and sprites in both games, compared to all the other returning characters. Everyone else has some kind of difference in either appearance, personality, and/or occupation, while Sans looks, acts, and does the same shit in both games. His store is just grill bees with the first part scratched out. He's the only one who has icy stuff despite the brand not existing at all outside of that in Undertale. He has toilet paper even though monsters don't eat in Undertale, and you have toilets in Deltarune. He's new to town, he wants to go back home, he has a secret lab with a broken machine in it, he took a picture with 3 people with the words "don't forget," and he's one of the 2 characters that even acknowledge the alternate universes. And Sans directly mentions readings from them like he's been monitoring them, unlike Alphys who just has a vague idea. And Sans directly acknowledges the player using alternate universes, as he makes you reload your save multiple times to get into his lab, and he recognizes you in Deltarune even though you've never met him, supposedly. I mean, really, I gotta give this an S for Sans. I think the question isn't, is Sans the same person? I think it's more so, what circumstances are going to lead him to being the same person? Maybe Sans is just so lazy he didn't get another sprite. My money is on some weird alternate universe situation, or like the ending creates the universes. I don't know. Maybe it's like all the alternate universes are spawned because there was only one universe of Deltarune and it was like shattered. Like, who knows? Number 13, Spamton divorced theory. This one is literally just that Spamton was in a love square with Jevil, Mike, and Tenna. As he mentions all of these characters, he also played with Jevil and lost to him despite cheating, according to the Spamton Q&A. He also mentions Mike and tells you to leave him out of this, almost like he's defending him, and he says not to trust the man on the TV, which is probably Tenna. So I think he's definitely most attached to Mike, and he probably holds a big grudge against Jevil for cheating and Tenna for being a liar. I've seen enough evidence. This is getting an S for shitpost. Number 14, Rotten Egg Theory. Basically, the eggs you get in Chapter 1 and 2, and presumably 3 through 7, will actually be useless and are just regular eggs. It's been 7 years since we got the first egg and 4 years since the second egg, so they'd be absolutely putrid by this point, and will only get more and more gross as the chapters went out. You know what tier this is getting. It's getting an S, but not the good one. Or maybe he's taking these 7 chicken souls and using it to break the breakfast barrier. Alright, new theory, Waffle House Gaster. Number 15, this is going to be a two-parter. Ralsei is dust. Since monsters turn into dust when they die, the theory is that Azrael died and his dust went to the Dark World and became Ralsei. There's piles of dust in Chapter 1 and 3 based on the teasers. Maybe on his way out of town, you rip out your soul and kill Azrael, hide his dust in the closet, and that becomes Ralsei. I don't see how Chris could fool the whole town into thinking Azrael left and he's actually dead this whole time, and Toriel especially wouldn't just not contact him to confirm that he's alive or not. I feel like if he's coming home this week, he would have like called at the beginning of the week or something, and Toriel would have confirmed it and just... what the fuck? And I can't really see Chris running all the way to Azrael's college to murder him, then take his dust from there and then put it into the closet. I'm giving this one a D for dubious at best. I don't see how Chris could have killed Azrael, and if he is dead, there has been really no indication of why. There's been way more setup to why Des is dead rather than why Azrael is dead. There has been no hints outside of just there are piles of dust and monsters turn to dust. At best, this is gonna come out of left field. Number 16, Ralsei is
crack.
I'm only gonna believe it if there's a store called
Blacks
and there's a
white guy selling it.
This one's getting a C for
crack.
Number 17, Deltarune is a ripoff of Undertale. Honestly, I saw this as an autofill option on Google and it's getting S for stupid. Oh my god, this is a fucking dumb question. Literally on the Steam page it says that Deltarune is an alternate universe of Undertale. Number 18, Sans is Ness. Now that MatPat retired, I can say that he had a long, fruitful career and he's made a lot of good content that I have enjoyed. However, this is a fucking stinker, and it's getting F for friggin' iconic. It was made really early in MatPat's career. It was made during a time when Undertale information wasn't so prevalent. Like, really obscure shit wasn't as well known as it is now, and you really only have like the base level stuff. You don't have people pouring through every line of code for stuff. You don't have every single sprite available. Like, it was a different time back then. Also, this pick that Toby made is funny as hell. Number 19, Des is in the code. Des is Noelle's missing sister. Or watch my previous video where I go over her. Inside Deltarune's source code, there's comments reading like a person trapped inside of it and is trying to escape. Such as this, where the person is asking if you can hear them and that it's so dark. And this one, where they say it's so quiet, but they hear like a scratching sound. So, who is it? Really, there's like 3 options. 1, it's Des because she went missing and our only real exposure to her has been through secret webpage links related to her, so it would be perfectly on brand for her to talk to us through the code. 2, it's the vessel, since they got discarded but their stats are secretly saved, so they are somewhere present in the game's memory. Or 3, it's just to mess with people that look through the source code, and this is just Toby writing it as a goof. He even says in a tweet that he's been trapped working on a game, but please hear me, I've been clawing at a door, explaining why the person hears scratching. It could be meta commentary on how Toby is literally stuck in the code because he's the one writing it. But Des getting shredded across time and space just like another character makes a whole lot of sense given how cryptic and weird her disappearance is in the ARGs. This is getting an S for super plausible. I don't think it's Gaster since he's the puppet master and he doesn't talk like this, and I don't think Toby would go through making 10 ARG pages to tell you that Des is lost and then have the voice be what is essentially a glup shadow that was used for a gag. Not to mention, I feel like a good portion of the Deltarune community just didn't play Chapter 1 period, so I don't feel like the vessel will be reserved for this big impactful role since a lot just didn't even get to customize it or see it, and they wouldn't have any emotional stake in it. How are you supposed to feel when you started in Chapter 2 and the gray person you've never seen suddenly has this big reveal? I think it's Des. Last theory. Number 20, you will close the Castletown Dark Fountain. As Dark Worlds continue to be opened, it stands to reason that at the end of the story, you'd close the massive Castletown Dark Fountain to preserve the balance of light and dark. Really isn't based off of anything except a hunch, but it makes way more sense when you read on the philosophy of Toby's previous game, the Earthbound Halloween hack. Now, I don't know a thing about this, I'm not gonna open this can of worms, but I will read off Toby's mindset while designing it. The main theme of this game is the lack of choice. there is really no choice in this game. There are two endings, but they both eventually end up the same way. It's all a big joke on the player. No matter who you talk to, you can only delay the inevitable. You know why there isn't a choice there. You already chose to go forward. The only real choice is to stop or keep going. By stop, he means turn off the game. And that's all you can do. Anything you play is your own fault for playing, and that's the only real choice you can make. It makes you feel cheated, and I think that's pretty good, because that's exactly what I set out to do. I think with how hard Deltarune emphasizes its lack of choice, and your choices having no significant impact in the game thus far, I could absolutely see this trend carrying through the whole game, ending with Chris, or whoever, having to essentially wipe out Castletown to save the world, or something to that effect. I'm gonna give this a D for dubious, at least for now. It does stand to reason that the same guy who said all of this wouldn't continue this here, especially when this line of design has persisted through the first third of the game so far. But I feel the story can go so many ways that I'm not gonna settle on it being the outcome, at least until chapter 4. I might even reassess these after the release of chapter 4 just to see how many of these will be disproven. We've had so little to go off of in the first two chapters that I feel the next two will just blow like 90% of these out of the water. And that's gonna finish off these 20 theories. Here is the full ranking of them. I tried to pick theories that at least had some merit, and if it didn't, it was probably a shitpost, which, granted, we got a lot of good memes here, a lot of funny stuff, and surprisingly, the Woody one and the divorce one make a whole lot of sense. It makes way more sense than like the rip-off theory or the rotten egg one, so in terms of which ones I think are really true, I would not be surprised that the headband, Death being in the code, Sans being the same person makes sense, especially because he literally mentions alternate universes. Chess theory is going to be interesting to see who's the rook and the knight, and if we're going by chess rules, would that mean that there would have to be 2 bishops, 2 knights, 2 rooks, and a bunch of pawns? Or is it just one representing each? Ralsei being dust is funny, but I don't see it being real. And I do think we could close the Dark Fountain at the end, but I think it's just way the fuck too early to really call it. So that's my ranking of these. Be sure to comment your own theories so I can rank them as well. These are just the ones that I found, so I'm sure you guys have some really good ones too. This was a really fun project to do, and I like delving into obscure Deltarune stuff to try and find any bit of information I really can. This was another very long video, and thank you for sticking around. Thank you to my patrons here, Jack, Lance Rockhard, and Chris Griffin. You guys are amazing. You guys will get early access to vids, uncensored vids when applicable, and a booster-only channel within my Discord. Like the video if you liked it, subscribe if you want to see more, comment your own theory or the best one on here, join the Discord if you want to interact with the community, and I will see you guys later.